Recently, I spent a few weeks in Tokyo with the goal of creating something different from what I've done on all of my other trips. The goal was to focus on things that would help me avoid tourists, while still trying to embrace the Sakura season as much as possible, and trying to improve on techniques that included zone focusing, sequencing, and shooting exclusively on film to develop a short-term project within my limited time frame, inspired by projects of past photographers that were also created in Tokyo. This is Suits, Spray Paint, and Sakura. This video is brought to you by PicDrop, a platform created to help photographers share photos with other creatives and their clients with ease. More on them later in the video. Probably the most difficult part of any photography project is defining what it is and what it's about. When I arrived on this trip in Tokyo, I didn't really know what that would look like for this project. What I did know is that I wanted to avoid all of the super touristic locations and have a different experience here than I'd had before. That's how I ended up spending the morning in Koenji, because my initial goal for this project was to shop exclusively at small film stores and try to support local businesses while making this project. Then go around and shoot within a certain radius of those stores, with the hope that I might be able to take some unique photos in the process. The first of these stores was incredibly impressive, to the point where I'm not really sure if it was a chain or not. If you're in Japan, you'll have to tell me. But the amount of cameras they had for anybody with any interest in any kind of photography or videography, matched with the amount of film that they had in stock, really made me glad that this was the first film store that I ended up at. With film in hand and my camera loaded, it was time to start exploring this area. I don't know if it was just the day or the time that I was there, but once you left the direct vicinity of the subway station, there wasn't a lot going on. It was still interesting enough to explore, but it really made me start to rethink my tactics and what I wanted to shoot on this trip. After thinking about it for a while, I came to terms with the fact that I really do want to get better at zone focusing. So if I didn't know exactly what I wanted to shoot for this project, I would at least try to improve on that skill, since up until recently, the cameras I've worked with haven't made zone focusing very practical. I landed on taking pictures of people on their way to work for a number of reasons. The primary reason is that it was the easiest way I could think of to avoid tourists. I wake up at 5 a.m. every day for my real job anyways, so it wasn't really killing me to get out of bed every day at this time to take these photos. The second reason is that Japanese people just look really great when they're going to work. Everyone's dressed up really nice, and it's totally different from what I normally have access to shoot. I don't know if I've ever seen anyone dressed up in a suit to go to work in the morning in the 6 years that I've lived in Bangkok. So that kind of style is an extreme rarity to me. Finally, I knew that this subject matter would allow for a ton of foot traffic, which would give me a lot of opportunities to practice zone focusing. Part of my whole reasoning for working with film is to have a deeper appreciation for all of the work that was created in the past. And trying to learn how to zone focus with film did just that, because it's not easy, and it really made me understand how dialed in all of these legends from the past were. In these 2 weeks of practicing zone focusing and trying to get better at it, I wouldn't really say I nailed the technique. I was shooting at shutter speeds that didn't really allow me to freeze my subject, because I was shooting at lower ISOs and wasn't able to push the film like I normally would, because I was having it developed and scanned at labs the whole time. Now that I'm back at home, I'll continue to work with this while shooting black and white film and pushing it really hard so that I can really close off the lens and get everything in focus while shooting at speeds that keep things sharp. Since I do so many photographer bios, it seemed logical to me to start talking about how they influence my work. Nakahira has become a big influence on me, not only because he's a member of Provoke, but because he really thinks about how to sequence photos. His photos are often sequenced in a way that make you focus on every individual photo, because the flow is kind of chaotic, and the subject matter and the way each photo is taken is kind of all over the place. This is done with intention in his later work, which makes those later books more appealing to look at. Recently, I also covered Harvey Stein on my channel, and I think he did a lot of awesome work, but when you look at his projects, there's so many that are about one specific thing, all shot in the same way, that they can get a little bit repetitive to look at. So I want to lean more towards Nakahira's style, and create things that are less repetitive. Another reason for me doing this project was to try to create a digital zine, so that I would have something to sell if anybody wanted to support the channel. So in creating that zine, I really wanted to consider the sequencing. One thing that helped me to sequence the photos for this was PicDrop. One of the main functions of their site is for you to upload your photos and collaborate with others. They allow you to flag different photos in different colors, telling you which ones to keep, which ones to throw out, and which ones might make the cut. So I sent these photos to other photographers, had them flag which ones they think should go into which categories, and looking at the different flags that different photographers gave me helped me curate this a little bit better and make sure that the stronger photos ended up in the zine that will be offered to you. This seems like something that would work really great for client work as well. They also make transferring photos between team members and clients incredibly effective. You can go to picdrop.com/go/developingtank and get a 2-month extended license to give it a try. The link is in the description. I don't really take photos like this, and that's exactly why I tried to do it for this project. Usually my mentality is that the more chaotic an environment is, the better photos you're going to get out of it. So trying to take photos of trees when it's perfect weather and it's totally calm and relaxing is definitely far outside of my current wheelhouse of photography. But I think the only way to advance creatively is to do things that are outside of your wheelhouse. And I also think it's important to interact with whatever culturally significant events are happening in whatever place you're in when you're traveling. So I went to the Meguro River to see the Sakura, and it was worth it. It was nice, it was relaxing, walk around with a coffee, take your time to shoot these photos. There's no real stress about the time that it takes, and I think these photos really offset all of the other street photos that I was taking, which was one of the main reasons for taking them in the first place. I also went to Ueno Park to take photos of the cherry blossoms, but I don't really see myself continuing to take photos in this vein. For around a decade, beginning in the late 1950s, William Klein traveled around the world to create books centered on Rome, Moscow, and Tokyo. Each of these were created in a short amount of time, but Klein's photography still resulted in incredible books, regardless of those time constraints. I didn't have access to many of the things Klein did to make his book on Tokyo, because he was led around by government officials, who took him to photograph Japan's upper crust. Then he had the ability to take the exact opposite kind of photos when he managed to get away from them, meet up with legendary Japanese photographer Aiko Hosoi, and become introduced to Japan's underground, which is what makes up a majority of Klein's work that he made in Tokyo. I was fortunate enough to look at the entirety of this work in person at Tokyo's Photography Museum. Knowing about all of these short-term projects that Klein made inspired me to make things in shorter periods of time, learn how to work faster and looser in a way that disregards perfectionism, and just get some things done in this life instead of perpetually pushing them off to the next day. I usually only have short windows to create work on trips, and I need to be more focused, shoot way more photos, and work diligently to create an end product if I want to meet my artistic goals. And I highly suggest you look at any of Klein's projects based around cities if you also want to make work that is high quality in short spans of time in this manner. A lot of times I was out way earlier than I needed to be for this project, and there weren't really a lot of workers out at that point. So in the spirit of continuing to add variance to this project, I thought it was important to capture the environments that people were in, or where they would be showing up to go to work relatively soon. Like I was talking about with Nakahira's work, these photos are intended to break up the repetitive nature of close-up photos I was trying to take. It's easy to fall into the trap that you need to create the same kind of photos all of the time to appeal to your niche. And several photographers have become extremely successful as a result of sticking to this mentality. But if you look at the work of any of the true greats, they have so much variety in terms of bringing in close-ups, environment shots, abstracts, and more Eggleston-type photos that it's become clear to me that variety is such a hugely underrated aspect of building out a great body of work. And it seems to often get disregarded in this day and age where algorithms lead us to believe that showing up to do the same thing over and over again is the only way to thrive as an artist. Looking back at the photos from this project, I wish I would have spent more time focusing just on architecture and details of buildings, or smaller macro elements that help tell the narrative of the morning commute or the Sakura season, instead of these broader, larger images. Intentionally trying to shoot a variety of different images can also change your perspective on different kinds of images. In general, I really don't like street photos where someone is really far away in the distance, but that mostly comes from the fact that I see so many people where that's all they ever shoot, and I think those kind of photos are typically devoid of emotion. But in this case, I did get a few that I like a lot, where a person is in the distance, and it builds out the criteria of showing the environments that these people walk through every day during their morning commute. Michael Wolff's Tokyo Compression is another series that inspired my work on this trip. Although I didn't come close to capturing the level of quality that he did in his photos, the work did motivate me to give shooting in this environment a try, and I believe this series of his deserves more praise. An essay that accompanies the book reads, "Michael Wolff's Tokyo Compression focuses on the craziness of Tokyo's underground system. For his shots, he has chosen a location that relentlessly provides his camera with new pictures minute by minute. Every day, thousands and thousands of people enter this subsurface hell for 2 or more hours, constrained by glass, steel, and other people who roll to their place of work and back home beneath the city. In Michael Wolff's pictures, we look into countless human faces, all trying to sustain their evident madness in their own way." Initially, shooting inside the subway stations proved to be really difficult. A lot of this was due to the fact that the ISO on the film I was using wasn't really high enough to make it practical to shoot in this kind of environment, and I wasn't very happy with any of my early results. To combat the problems I was having, I decided to turn to black and white film and push it a lot to 1600 ISO to see if I could get any better results. Unlike the other film I shot on this trip, I ended up developing this stuff on my own, because my experience, trying to get your film pushed at a place either costs a lot or they won't do it at all. At the time of making this film, due to time constraints, I'm still cleaning up a lot of these images so they aren't totally perfect at this point, but I was happy with a few of them. They definitely didn't meet the high bar that was set by the Tokyo Compression project, and I think for myself to really thrive in this kind of environment shooting this kind of subject matter, I would really need to work with digital instead of film. And considering it was my last weekday to shoot on this project, I decided to go back outside, shoot some other things that might add some different context like people on crosswalks, and different details like hands on briefcases, and footwear to fully flesh out what their attire looks like and their accessories, and really try to fully build out this short-term project. So what did I learn in the process of making a short-term project? One is that it's nice to actually go to shops and communicate with them in terms of developing your film and getting your scans back. I pretty much always order my film online and do all the developing myself, so that aspect of the creative process has always been lost on me. It took me back to my days of buying physical media in terms of records and CDs, and actually communicating with people at record stores and all that you get out of that communication. The second is that trying to do a project like this under these kind of time constraints is exhausting, but it is incredibly helpful in knowing exactly what you want to shoot, how you want to shoot it, and dialing in those aspects of creativity. And at this point, you might ask, why is spray paint included in the name of this when it's something you didn't touch on at all in this process? When I started on this project, I was taking a decent amount of photos of spray paint and different kinds of graffiti that are all over Tokyo. I think the graffiti in Tokyo is its own kind of special, hilarious thing. But when it came to taking photos of it on film, it was kind of just feeling like a waste of film. And this is a project that I might pursue in the future digitally. But I kept it in the name because it was a major process of me figuring out what this project would look like in the end. Overall, probably the biggest failure of this project was that I wanted to have a kind of research component to this, and that's something I just never pursued because I never had enough time. I don't really think you can have a lot of research involved in a project that's this short term. My degree is in social studies education, so that background is something I want to have play a bigger role in future projects, but it just wasn't going to work under these time constraints. Overall, I enjoyed this process, and I enjoyed making the first of hopefully many projects going forward. Again, I put all of this into a digital zine that's available on my website if you're interested in picking it up and supporting the channel. Thanks for watching, thanks to PickDrop for sponsoring this video, and please like, share, comment, and subscribe if you got anything out of it. Until next time, keep developing.